Well, you've been also calling for a frank and unsentimental assessment of the foreign policy that places Britain as a world policeman. You object to that phrase, the world police, I think.
Well, Britain is no longer a global power. We're not a superpower.
Do you regret that?
No. That would be sentimental, nostalgic foolishness. No. All countries go through periods of, not all countries, but many countries go through periods when they are great global empires, and then the world moves on. It started with the Romans. It's not going to end now. So you don't regret it, but what I do recognise is that the United States is in a league of its own. But after the United States, there are actually very few countries that combine serious military capability, but also genuine respect for the rule of law and a belief in the need for international stability to ensure progress around the world. Now, Britain's not the only country. It's one of the few countries that combine these qualities, and therefore, hopefully, under the support of the Security Council or in other ways of that kind, Britain can make a disproportionate impact helping stability, the rule of law, and things of that kind.
And is it expected to make a disproportionate
impact? Yes, many people do expect it to.
It's expected of us now because the willingness of the Blair era to send our troops to wherever they were.
No, forgive me, I think you're looking at it too partial a way. No, the willingness of the United Kingdom to be involved throughout the world, helping the international community, long predated Tony Blair. The government of which I was a member had British forces in many countries around the world, peacekeeping. We were involved in the war to liberate Kuwait and so forth. Tony Blair also did that, but what he added to, and that has been hugely controversial, was, and he shared this view with George W. Bush, that if you did not like a regime and believed it was hostile to the interests of the wider world, even if they hadn't attacked you, you had a right, you had a duty in his view, to send your military forces in. Now, where I think that was so foolish and was rightly criticised around the world was using your military superiority to remove a government. That's easy. That's the easy part. It's what happens when you then create, by doing that, a political vacuum, and you cannot then control what emerges from that vacuum, as we saw in Iraq, where 200,000 people have died since the war ended.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your party, though, because we are coming up to an election,
yes.
and we need to show...
What your viewers are more interested in my views. I'm very aware of that.
So let's find out where your party's going in the coming weeks. There is a distinct suspicion that the pro-Israeli organisations in Britain look set to do very well under a Conservative administration. Can you say how many members of the shadow cabinet are signed up members of Friends of Israel?
I haven't the faintest idea.
It's around 50%.
It could easily be, but I just don't know. I mean, the Conservative Friends of Israel has been active as an organisation in British politics for 40 years. 30 to 40 years. It's always commanded support of a lot of members of Parliament, some of whom have become members of the shadow cabinet. There are similar organisations such as the Conservative Middle East Council, which tends to take a more pro-Arab position on many of these international issues. There are Conservative Friends of Palestine. There are other organisations. What people join is up to their own personal...
Let's talk a little bit about, but we're talking about the influence of these specific groups, because there aren't any other groups that I know of that have given well over £10 million over the last 8 years to a party like yours that is about to potentially take government. Do you think that when one particular lobby group representing a foreign state involves itself in British politics, that this is a free check?
I reject the premise of your question. Last night I was at a meeting, because I'm a patron of the Conservative Friends of America. We don't lobby on behalf of the United States. The Conservative Friends of America, and likewise the Conservative Friends of Israel, or the Conservative Friends of Turkey, which is a similar organisation.
Do you get £10 million from those groups as well then? Are they all that generous?
Frankly, your figure is the first time I've ever heard that. And I'm not in a position to say whether you're right or wrong, because I simply don't know. I've never heard that figure used before, and I don't believe the Conservative Friends of Israel could possibly have given that money as an organisation, because they don't have that sort of money, nothing remotely like it. They may have individual members who are wealthy people and who have chosen to support the Conservative Party.
Let's talk about some of the individual members.
You made a statement, and sorry, you want your viewers not to misunderstand the situation. The Conservative Friends of Israel, like all these conservative organisations, have very small budgets, not millions of pounds. And I just do not believe, as an organisation, they could remotely have given a fraction.
The money that I'm talking about, the £10 million, is from all CFI members and their businesses.
Now you see it. Now hold on.
So these are members of that organisation who are donating to a major party in British politics.
You are being grossly improper, if I may say so. Now hold on. Let me explain my answer. You've made a point. I'm going to be given the right to reply. if what you're now saying is something totally different, you're saying many individuals who happen to belong to many organizations, of which one is the Conservative Friends of Israel, happen as individuals to support the Conservative Party. Well, good luck to them. That is a ridiculous accusation to make, to imply that the Conservative Friends of Israel give £10 million, which you've now admitted is not remotely true.
I am quoting from a recent research that says that members of the CFI...
as individuals.
And have been giving money to your organisation. We can just talk about the individuals concerned. I'm quite happy to do that. Conservative Friends of Israel... They take dozens of MPs on free trips to Israel, which is normal for a lobby group.
Correct.
There are plenty of lobby groups around the world.
Yes.
BICOM, the British Israel Communications and Research Centre, David Cameron is alleged to have accepted a £15,000 donation from them.
I haven't the faintest idea. I'm sorry.
Have you never heard of BICOM?
Of course I've heard of BICOM. I have no idea whether they give support to David Cameron or not. I mean, you'll have to ask David Cameron.
Okay, you don't know that, but what does BICOM do then? What is
I'm
their
sorry,
job?
I'm not part of BICOM. You asked me if I'd heard of them. I have heard of them.
They're backing your leader.
A lot of people half the British public are backing my leader, but that doesn't mean I know details about what they do in their spare time.
Have you heard of Poyu Sablowitz, the Finnish billionaire who chairs BICOM?
No, I can't say. I've never heard of the name before.
With business interests
what is
in
the
the
purpose?
West Bank. The purpose of
I am not.
this
So hold on a moment. I am not going to have an interview with you about a series of individuals and organisations who I am not responsible for, with you putting questions to me about them and me telling you I know nothing about them, which happens to be true. If that's the way the interview is going to go, we're wasting each other's time.
I'm surprised that you don't know about major funders for your party.
Well, I'm sorry, that is not my responsibility. There are other people who deal with the funding side. I'm not one of them. I am a member of Parliament. I represent my constituents and I am active in the issues that interest me. I am not claiming here to be an expert in the precise origins of funding either for the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or the Friends of Arab Worlds or the Friends of Israel or anything of that kind.
Let's move on to the foreign agenda that a new Conservative government might have. For example, fighting terrorism or exporting democracy. These are two channels of inquiry that people have applied to British foreign policy recently. In your opinion, where would a Conservative government differ from a Blair government on the issue of...
I think it's already clear that a Conservative government does not accept the categorisation that Tony Blair argued, that we were having a war on terror, as if somehow you lump together every country where there has been examples of terrorist activity, where terrorist organisations exist, as if they're all part of a single axis of evil, to use the notorious phrase. That was a view which Tony Blair clearly believed in, George W. Bush believed in. I don't think most of the Labour Party did, and I think most of the Conservative Party don't. And even some of those who did a few years ago no longer do. They believe, and I think rightly, that this was oversimplistic. To give an example, Iran is often accused of giving support to terrorist organisations. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, that is what it's often accused. I think it is absurd to link Iran with Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a totally different organisation with no historic link, just as it was absurd to link Al-Qaeda with Saddam Hussein. It is supremely irresponsible, because what it implies is that politicians who use that kind of approach have already made up their mind, and they are looking for arguments to support a conclusion they've already reached. And that's pretty dangerous, particularly when it leads you to war that wasn't necessary.